welcome to another episode of I Made That. I'm your host, Chloe Emme. I Made That podcast. My guest today is a cinematographer, director, and video producer with roots in the free skiing and action sports industries. He's grown from an unpaid intern to one of free skiing's most prolific filmmakers. He is now entering the next phase of his career where he's had the opportunity to create visuals for brands like Carhartt, The North Face, Bose, and Canva. He is insanely versatile. He's able to capture really powerful stories both on and off the mountain. He is one of my creative heroes, and he's here today to drop some knowledge and wisdom on all of us. Please welcome my guest, Kyle Decker.
Thanks, Chloe. How's it going?
It's going. So I am, obviously really familiar with your work, but for the listeners who might not be as familiar, can you describe what you do?
I am a filmer, editor, and producer. So essentially anything from skiing to the corporate world to anything in between. Essentially, somebody comes to you with an idea and you help them execute it, film it, edit it, and deliver it. And then a company takes it and releases it wherever they see fit.
So obviously your roots are really in the ski industry. So that's how I came to know about you. I lived in Colorado for quite a while at Breckenridge, one of the ski resorts, and you have had the opportunity to work with a ton of free skiers. So again, for people that are not as familiar, all the people doing the crazy wild flips on jumps and stuff. Can you explain how you even ended up there? Like how did that come about?
I mean, it just came about because that kind of was what I loved doing. I love filming that stuff, being inspired by the pro skiers or skateboarders or snowboarders at the time. And I created that with my friends and realized, I want to do it more and more. I was doing a lot of editing at the time and realized the footage was kind of trash because it was a bunch of buddies passing a camera around that didn't really know or care about getting a good shot. So that led more creatively into, getting better shots to make better edits. That led into an internship with a company I really look up to, Level One Productions, and kind of just snowballed into something I didn't know what would be almost like a 20-year career.
I don't think I've ever heard that portion of the story before, that it started out as you guys literally just not having anybody that was able to get good enough footage, and you're like, no, I'm taking this into my own hands, like somebody has to do this. And that's how this really started.
Yeah, because you don't want to edit like garbage footage and you're editing it. So an editor looks at the footage more than anyone. And, I started to see what we needed to improve on. And I kind of wanted to make a better video, and you can't make a better video with better footage. So
That all makes a lot of sense. So because you grew up in the Midwest too, right? You're from Ohio, correct?
yes, Elyria, Ohio.
And we have rough winters in the Midwest. It's a lot of skiing on ice, a lot of rails. We don't have like jumps or anything like, or pipes or like anything crazy. At what point were you like, I really love this, I need to go somewhere that has a little bit more to offer than the Midwest? How old were you?
I mean, ever since you're young, you always want to, go out west. You hear about it. Really, really enjoyed skiing in Ohio for forever because that's all I knew. But as you're exposed to bigger mountains, you do a family trip to Pennsylvania or New York, and then that kind of snowballs into going out to Colorado or Utah. My dad took my brother and I out there, and like we were in love. Like obviously, you see bigger mountains and you want to be a part of it. So I was a senior in high school, didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I heard of this school. I maybe saw an ad in Free Skier magazine for a school called Colorado Mountain College. And I went there my freshman year, moved out west, lived in Steamboat for a year, and just like wanted to be around the snow. But then I kind of realized like, okay, I'm either going to move out here and be a ski bum, or I'm going to go to college, because that was kind of like an in between, like kind of a ski bum and kind of college. So I was like, let's ended up moving back home because I did miss like my group of close friends who we eventually kind of like started filming ski and snowboard videos together with. And it was just like such a tight like network of homies that, it was just like what we did as a hobby. And that, you know, I think that was like the unofficial film school of learning how to film or put these things together, is you were just kind of doing it with your friends and doing it for fun, and no like, um, yeah, really nothing but that.
Can we have a moment for CMC? I 1000% forgot about that. They are the best deal. If you are like, oh, I don't know what I want to do with my life, but I want to be in the mountains and like still be furthering myself, it's insanely cheap. Their campuses are all literally at like the base of mountains. So I'm a big proponent of community college in general, but they definitely have a cool setup out there. Okay, so you're figuring this out with your friends. You're like, okay, I'm going to go back to college. And then what happens after that?
Yeah, when I was in college, my dad had passed away, so I was kind of just like, I wasn't going to say midlife crisis, but just like kind of figuring out what I needed to do to stay happy or keep my mind in a good place. And so I think I just really, really focused aggressively on like filming and making movies. And I went out west and did this like video contest Raj Masters put on every year, ended up winning that. And then after that, Josh Berman from Level One offered me an internship, which I think was another huge moment in like just my trajectory of like somebody you really looked up to. I mean, his movies and Johnny DeCesare's were like the one I was watching growing up. So like having somebody that wanted you to intern for him was like a huge honor, and I think it boosts my like just general like, oh, I can do this. So like I went out there and interned for him, and like I don't care what, whatever he needed me to do in the video. Like I mostly was like jokingly the first year I was kind of the bonus features guy. I don't know if anyone remembers DVDs, but like I I made all the, but he really, like him and Frito Cody were really hands on with the actual movie. It was long story short, and they allowed me to like take all this insane footage. Like we're talking Corey Vanier, Liam Downey, like some of the best skiers of the time. And they're letting me play with like the leftover footage, which was still some of the best footage I've ever played with. So I'm just like down in his basement, just cutting all these like, you know, bonus segments together. And I feel like I kind of almost oddly started to get a name for myself in the industry, because I, back in the day, everyone used to put their name at the end of every edit, which doesn't really happen as much anymore. So there was just a ton of edits with my name on the end of it. So like the writers started to like, I don't know, maybe they appreciated that I was taking some of the shots that they arguably wanted in the movie or just wanted to see more of. Like I kind of brought more of that to life, but really it was just like somebody that really wanted to have his hands on the actual like working on the movie, but like did my best with what I had an opportunity at the time, and then eventually, got hired as an editor and full time filmer, which was huge.
So I think like the first place that my head goes when you're talking about Josh giving you that opportunity, I've had a handful of people in my life. I mean, really, definitely two or three people that stick out where it's like I have no business being in the rooms that they allowed me to be in, or like you're saying, doing the work that he allowed you to do. Have you had anybody else that really sticks out in your career that you're like, oh, they really put a hand out for me, like that that really leveled me up?
Yeah, I mean, right away, just like Tom Wallish, who I was working closely with throughout the years, like when he was, absolute top of the game, the fact that he wanted to do an independent project and chose me to get involved in it, that was a huge honor. And I feel like when somebody gives you those opportunities, yeah, you have this imposter syndrome. You're like, I mean, they could pick anyone else. And like, okay, well, like somehow I ended up in this situation. Let's just like go all in to like try to like keep up, almost like trying to keep up with where you think you should have been, or where you think somebody that should have had that position would have worked at that level. And I think it kind of like boosts you to do great things. And I still find that in work today. Like, you stress yourself out about a job that you're honored to get, but that stress like kind of builds within, and you want to like you're stressed because you want to show up for that person that gave you a chance. Like last thing you want to do is somebody to give you a really good chance and you blow it because it's probably not going to happen again. And I think like the same goes like if you were to hire somebody, like when you hire someone, you can sniff that out right away. Like when you hire someone for a job and they're not only doing what you ask them to do, but like thinking a couple steps ahead, or you can tell they're like trying an extra bit. You're like, okay, you're in. You just have that mentality to like not only just do what you're asked to do, but like doing it at your best ability. And even if like somebody else has a better skill set, just seeing someone like that cares that much, you know that person's going to deliver. Because if things go sour, that person with that good skill set may things may not pan out, but that person that's always going to like be there to get it done is the person you want by your side.
1,000%. I think in my eyes, I kind of call that, and I work the same way too. It's like when I'm working for you like it's my business. And I think it's really hard to find people that will work for you in that way. And I think obviously you're the same way, but you just have this insane work ethic, but also it's combined with, like you said, like the caring and the effort that you're putting into things that really makes a huge difference. I want to kind of switch over to the other side of this. I think this is all really inspiring and good, but what do you struggle with most?
I think like two things I'd really like to get better at would be just general sales, selling yourself, getting the job. I'd say, yeah, that would be my number one thing. Like if a lot of my work comes from existing work, reputation, word of mouth, but I really look up to the people that go out there and, are either cold calling companies, pitching jobs, or just finding like where, just finding work out of thin air. And then once you get those clients, they build up. And I think that's something that I'm definitely focusing on right now is just like the business end of video production. I think throughout the years, I probably, I've been in the industry for a long time, but I was so passionately in my ski world. And a lot of those years, I had a fortunate umbrella like a Josh Berman who handled the money coming in, dealing with the sponsors, dealing with what we need, all the business day to day. Where like I got a paycheck, I went out and did what I needed to do, had fun, moved on, and then like my next phase when I did work with Wallish and his agent Tom Yapps, I kind of slowly got a little bit more involved. I'd say Wallish and Yapps ran most of it, but like I think I started to learn more of the business side as we started to do like projects for some of the sponsors, and then once I kind of branched off even more on my own, it's like trial and error, and just like I feel like I have a good network of close filmer friends that like fully support each other. I'll share all my secrets, they share all their secrets, and like feel like just like growing together on like these mistakes because really like a lot of us are independent, so like bouncing things off each other, running numbers, rates between each other, so we're not like undercutting the industry, and we're like building up the industry and keeping things fair. So something I certainly would love to learn more of, like how to find those jobs, and the whole process. Once the job is in my hands, I feel very confident to execute. But like I didn't go to school for sales. Like I
I think for me, I come across this so often, and it's like the best creatives aren't always the best business people. And I think that as a creative professional, you're spot on. We're not always taught how to do the numbers side of things. So like, I can make you this great product, I can edit this, I can film it for you, I can do all this, but then I have to like invoice you for it, and then I have to like follow up. Like, there's just so much to the process outside of just creating the product that I agree. I think that's a really kind of daunting task to learn all of that. So I think that's all super relatable. I think that definitely kind of figuring out the business side of things is difficult, and sometimes you have to call in people. I have a lovely accountant who I definitely keep on speed dial, but you don't always have like a business manager or somebody to really handle a lot of that nitty gritty stuff. So I can totally relate. Who do you look to for inspiration?
I think it depends on the segment, but in terms of like filming style right now, I'm like still really inspired by, Brady Perrin is one that first comes to mind. And he has a very unique style that like I don't even know if it's learnable, but like the simplicity or like just some of his execution is like so intentional, like so natural. I feel like as I've gotten more into the corporate world, I'm not as exposed to. I don't know. When I was like making ski films, I feel like you could take a lot bigger risks with editing or shooting, like where in a lot of business in the business world, like they want something a little bit cleaner. So I'm always inspired and like a little jealous of some of these filmers that are just going out there and like Brady and just he's creating awesome stuff, and I can do that as as a personal project. So really, that's just an excuse. So really, I do need to go out and just create. And I find when I do that, it's fun. Just like absolutely shoot something for yourself. You might not even ever release it. Just sharpening the sword to like, work on whatever skill set you think you're kind of lacking.
Yeah, it's definitely important to kind of like recharge my creativity. I have to do those little side projects. I have to sketch something out, like make up a brand, or even, I really like to paint or practice in like different mediums, just doing something creative that's not necessarily for a client or for any reason. I think that's super important for kind of keeping like your stoke levels up, but also like practicing your creativity. Because I think, especially when you're working with more corporate clients, you get kind of into the mindset of being able to lean on just what they're looking for. You're not really using as much of the creativity. So,
Yeah, you're still like actively shooting and improving on your craft, but you're improving on like, if you're shooting like corporate interviews, you're like trying to get the perfect lighting. You're always trying to improve the audio, like the angle, like but it's limited in that box where just improving something completely different off on the side is that wasn't asked for, I think is key. Those are things that somebody says, can you do this? You see the problem, figure out a solution and do it. But like, I think true creativity comes from when you want to do it or do it independently or do it just because it's you. And I find that like in my world of, filming and editing, like my friends are most creative when they have control over the whole process because some people I think throttle back on their creative sometimes when it is for a client because they probably have a specific style in mind, where when you're doing it for yourself, like it sounds cliche, but like there's no rules or you're really just like experimenting. And if it sucks, you never show it to anyone. No one asked to see the product to begin with, so like play around.
yeah, no, definitely. I think that's a really important part. Okay, so I guess we have talked a little bit about you moving from doing predominantly ski stuff and then moving over to being now more working with like corporate clients. Can you talk about, you still work for yourself, but I think I definitely go through these ins and outs of like self-doubt of like, should I be working for myself? Should I be working for somebody else? Can you talk about what that looks like for you, figuring out that line of like, do I want to work for myself? Do I want to go work for somebody? What does that feel like?
Well, my wife is a therapist, and she'd probably say sometimes it's not healthy. Like the amount of self doubt I put into myself to like drive myself, if that makes any sense. Like this just yesterday, the day before, I had a really cool creative commercial shoot I did with a friend who has an agency on the East Coast. Super honored to like get the call, but once again, in your head, you just start putting that pressure, like, I got to deliver. Like, you kind of stress yourself out. I probably stressed myself out all weekend, just like overthinking it. But I feel like overthinking it gets you in the mindset that, like, when it's time to show up, you don't even have to think about it because you're already worried about it. So, but yeah, I think I'm like, grass is always greener. I haven't had a real, like, job that I worked for somebody full time in a very long time. But sometimes I feel like that would be way easier. I think I'd love to see a consistent paycheck where, like, you know, when you're freelance, it's great pay. It's probably better paid. I think it's better pay than if you work full time for someone. But then you have to be really good at money management because, you might not have a check show up for 2 months because of some kind of net 60 payment terms. And then all of a sudden you get, a large chunk of money, and you just have to like manage it well. And just like, it kind of does stress you out sometimes when you see a lot of money that's going to be coming in, but it's not a lot of money, but like a check coming in that like you have to wait for, and you're currently kind of worried about how you're going to pay for X, Y, and Z in the meantime. So like you're always stressing about that. So sometimes you fantasize like, oh, it'd be nice to like work for a company and they pay for your health care. A check shows up in the mail every 2 weeks or whatever happens now. I'm sure it gets deposited, but like I think it's always the grass is always greener thing, because I talk to friends that do get a full time job and they say they miss the flexibility or the freedom to pick and choose the jobs you want to do, even though you kind of take most opportunities that come your way. But like, I do enjoy that you have a little bit more flexibility on your schedule, and you feel like you have some control. And I think like a lot of creatives, like myself, I'd probably have a hard time at first adapting to working full time for someone. And I'm sure I would enjoy it, and I wouldn't work for someone full time unless it was a really good fit. So maybe that problem would never exist. But I think that's a fear, and probably why I haven't jumped over to the other side is like I kind of like how things work right now, and I don't want to. It's nice building something of your own, whether it's big or small. Like it's yours, and you have a little bit more control over how it's built.
Yeah, I think that in the first part of that, when you're talking about kind of turning your stress into productivity, I think I would also get yelled at by your wife because I do the exact same thing. And I reconcile it in my head as like, everybody stresses out. At least I'm being productive with my stress because I'm not somebody, if I'm stressed, I'm not going to sit in it. I'm not going to like not move. Some people they get stressed out and they're just like paralyzed. They can't do anything. When I'm stressed, I'm like, nope, we need to get this done because I have this thought like, oh, once I get it done, I won't be stressed, even though it just fills back up. But I think that you have to have a certain level of that stress or even just like the humbleness that I feel like you exhibit to really do a good job at something, because I think that when you have too much ego involved and maybe you feel too comfortable, it doesn't always end up being the best end product. I think you get a little bit complacent. So I feel like finding that kind of middle ground of stressing, but also, just being humble and being open and present for that situation is really important. And I'm sure part of like your secret sauce.
Yeah, and yeah, at the end of the day, whatever you stress about, like people hire people chose you because they thought you could do the right job. So like, you should never stress about like whether or not you can get it done. I think the stress is always like you want to over deliver in whatever way it might be, like in the creative or just being like having a great experience with people, giving people a great experience, helping in like all these little ways. I feel like it's it's just like an overall experience, and it's not like just watch this video and this is what you did. I feel like at the end of the day, like other people have to work with you. You want it to be good. Like we've all worked with people. Like I've worked with some filmers that are absolutely like incredibly talented, kind of a dick, or like kind of like disrespectful, or you don't feel that sense of community, or and that's like what I absolutely thrive for just as much as like anything. And when I'm working is like a sense of community and people working together. Like this job yesterday, like the the director, the assistant director, the client, like myself, like everyone was like it's like one of the best. Like everyone was like all in. Everyone was like super passionate about like doing whatever we needed to do to get it done, and like we all wear 100 different hats, but nobody cared. Nobody wore like a title. It's just like let's have some fun, and it was like everything went so well. Like And it's like that's the way it just should be. Like we don't have to overcomplicate things. Like it's about like working as like a crew. And I have like a good network of friends out here that I work with that like every time I work with them it's works well because everyone knows how to work together. They know each other's weaknesses and strengths and like will support each other in those moments to just like get it done.
That's super cool. I think that for me, I've talked about it before with you, I'm sure, but on here as well, like my non-negotiable for taking on a client or working with somebody is they have to love what they do. And I think that a lot of those situations that you're talking about with the community feel and the camaraderie and like being able to wear all these different hats and not caring about it, I think a lot of that comes from being around people that really love what they do. I think it takes a lot of the like ego out of it and a lot of the I don't know, just like people feeling like they're above something or like only staying in their lane for what their job title is. Like when you're around people that really love it and live it and breathe it, it's a different vibe. So that's really cool though that you have a team of people that you get to work with pretty consistently like that.
I kind of seek it out. So I feel like that's something that I personally like try to seek out is a community because you need that because you're kind of all you're kind of all alone as like a business owner sometimes and somebody's going to come to you with a bigger project. You need to crew up or your friends need to crew up. So like we kind of all work for each other's businesses essentially. We're all like our own employees or vice versa, but like it's like you support each other when somebody's doing well or somebody needs help here, like odd little like works.
Oh, I love that. You guys are kind of like your own like rogue agency. It's like you call somebody up when you need something. You're like, I got a guy. Like we got somebody on this.
Yeah. Like I started my company, The Bureau, because I wanted it to be like this kind of more agency style where I would crew up all my friends, but have them on the website as like employees. But really, I don't know. I feel like I'm just as much as, working for friends as they work for me or vice versa. So it's like, I don't know how much people want to work with agencies sometimes. Sometimes it's hit or miss. So it's good to be the rogue. Yeah, just like a scrappy, nimble crew.
Yeah. So I think in this last conversation we talked a little bit like about you being on set and feeling like you wear 100 different hats. What are some of those hats? Can you talk about the different things you do as a creative professional?
I mean, everything from bidding for the project, and then you get the project, and then you hit with other creative. Keep that creative within budget, which is always challenging because you always want to do more, but balancing what you can do with budget and time, and then executing, crewing up, or doing it on your own, and coming up with a plan that fits within that, you know, within that day or multiple days, and making sure you don't overextend yourself so you can't deliver what you promise. So once again, that's like lowering expectations if we only have a day to shoot, or telling the client, we need another day to cover this. But I think just being confident on understanding what works, what doesn't work, and how that fits within a time and a budget is, the newest challenge versus back in the day. It's like, hey, here's a credit card and three of the best skiers in the world go to Helsinki, Finland. That was awesome. I still would probably rather do that, but now it's like, okay, I'm at a different stage in life. I have a family, I have kids, so now figuring out that like the business end of filming is a challenging part. But to circle back, you execute, you deal with the editing process, which can be really easy or a huge pain, depending on clients' wants and needs. Obviously, you do your best to accommodate based on budget and translating what they want into the video. And then most of the time from there, the video is delivered, and then it's the client's responsibility on distribution, which is if they want to put money behind it or just drop it on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, whatnot. But in short, what happens?
Yeah, no, you definitely work really full cycle, like start to finish. And I think it is wild how many, even just from like the creative portion, how many different things you can do. Because I think that being able to edit, but also being able to film and do all these different pieces of it are such different skill sets that probably make you understand what you do so much better. So I think that's really interesting too. Because is it typical? Do people generally film and edit?
Um, it depends on what industry, like higher end commercial, like, if you're making like a Super Bowl commercial, that guy, most DPs are only, everyone's doing their specific roles. I think over the past few years, you've kind of forced to be adaptable. And I think it's important for survival in the future because companies, as budgets slim down or people kind of want more of a one-stop shop, it just makes sense. And I enjoy it because then you can bill for the filming day and then you can add on, multiple days editing. So you stay you stay busier because you have different skill sets. Otherwise, you're constantly trying to find a film day or a shoot day. Like you then can spread that out and also have some editing time, which is great because then whether you like one or the other, then you're looking for it helps balance things out. If you don't like editing as much, which I think I like the filming more, then you edit a little bit and then you get to mix it back up and go out in the field and edit or go out and shoot and just change the monotony of like doing the same thing over and over.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay. Who would your dream client be? Like somebody that maybe you haven't worked with yet, or it could be just a certain type of project.
I don't know, maybe like filming drone shots for billionaires on their yachts. Probably a
Oh,
pain in the
that's
ass.
right.
No, I'm just trying to think of like a cool place to be. I don't like have a dream client in mind. I think it's like not necessarily like the product or like the paycheck, but circling back to what we just talked about earlier, it's like the dream project is having like I hate using this word, but like a dream team together to like do the piece and having the project start to finish just like work feel natural and like and at the end of the day like you see the end product and you're super happy with it. Like I'm thinking of I did a project for Brunello Cucinelli, which is like a high end Italian fashion brand. I two couple pieces for them, but the second one I did was in Venice Beach, and it was just like an extremely good crew from you know start to finish. Everything like felt natural, and I'm happy with how the edit turned out. And it was just like that was one of those dream projects where it was fun, super stressful on the front end with permitting and all the logistics. I mean, the client came out from Italy, so and we had one day to shoot it in Venice Beach. It was permitted, but like anything can happen in Venice Beach, like like. But I think I really love those projects because I put a lot of prep into the pre-production, and then once you actually get there and you're out there with the boys, like with cameras, like it's awesome. Like you're like kind of almost celebrating before you're even done shooting because like once you get to the point of like having a camera in your hand, it's like the fun, easy part. I think for me, like sometimes I don't necessarily always love all the pre-production going into it, but you do need that stress of all the pre-production and planning. So when you get there, everyone knows what they need to do, and you've already played out how you want it to go, how it could go wrong. If it goes wrong, how are you going to fix it? Like I feel like some of that stress, at least I tell myself, like a lot of that stress I give myself is because I have an option A, B, and C of getting out of every shoot. Something happens, weather is going to change. Something happens to the location, something happens to the talent. Like you got to be adaptable.
Yeah, it feels like almost like planning a party. Like it's stressful. There's all this stuff you have to do beforehand, but then you get to the party day and it's like, oh, I get to enjoy this. That's what it kind of feels like what you're explaining with getting to go out and film. Like the film day is like the party. You get to just go have fun and, you've prepared for this. So that's
Yeah.
really cool. All right. Well, it has been lovely chatting with you. We have reached the point in the interview where I get to ask you the question that I ask every single person that comes on here. What is the wildest story that you can tell me on this podcast?
When we film street skiing, we've been, I've been in countless situations with police in different countries, whether it's Russia's cops with AK-47s or, Finland, they're super nice, Japan, they're super nice, and, various other trips. I feel like I've had more interactions with police officers than probably most people, and none of them ended like surprisingly bad. I feel like in general, I've learned through all the interactions with cops telling you to leave a spot or people being really upset. Notice that like as long as you approach the situation with confidence and kindness, like you're good. Because I feel like if you're doing something where cops or somebody come up to you and approach you and say, "Hey, you can't do this," if you're friendly with them, they're not expecting you to be friendly. And nine times, actually, I've never been like arrested for anything, and I've probably dealt with probably over 100. I don't know about 100, but like 50 to 100 interactions with cops. So I don't know if that's like a crazy situation, but like the one in like Russia was pretty gnarly. Like we were at a spot where there was no. It was the one day our guide was not with us, and we're like, we're just gonna, we're these stupid, hungry American young skiers. We're just gonna go out and find. So we went to a spot, just like classic, like Russia, like surrounded by these large apartment complexes and super like just cold and crunchy snow, and like we're shooting. I'm on the ground with this like dolly filming Wallish, and the cops, I just hear like cops come out of a car and they all have AKs and they're like yelling at me in Russian, surrounded by me, and they're just like screaming, but I can't tell what they're saying. And I'm like, I don't have my translator. None of them speak English, so I like can't, I call the translator and I'm like, or our guide, can you please translate it? I'm doing this to the cops because I'm like doing this, and they were like really angry. And then it's like five of them in a little sedan. I do this, they talk, and they all don't say anything to me, get back in their car and drive away. And I'm like, the hell just happened there? I don't know if they like thought I was calling some kind of like US embassy or what the hell was happening, but it was like, I was like, this is gonna be bad, like, because I'm in Russia. Like, you hear these stories about like people getting locked up for stupid, I just like a little bit like worked up about like what would happen, and then just got in the car, and that was it. Nothing ever happened. So
That's a wild one. That's a see, nobody has ever told me any Russian stories yet, so you're number one for that. Um, well, thank you so much for taking time to come and chat with me. I do want to give you an opportunity. Where can we find you? Give us a shout out. Where can we find you on website, Instagram? What do you got?
Instagram's probably where I'm most active. It's at Shop by the Bureau. And then my website is thebureau.co. And you can contact me there for if you're looking to hire me for any work, please shoot me an email. Or if you have any questions, you're another filmer, editor, creative, like hit me up on Instagram, and like happy to connect, chat. I probably want to learn something from you. So
Kyle's literally the best collaborator. I like how Kyle and I met is I literally like cold emailed him on LinkedIn and I was like, "Hey, you made all these cool ski movies. I need to talk to you." And he was like, "Okay." He did like suss me out. You were like, "Well, where did you grow up skiing?" Like you had to like make sure that this was like legit. But Definitely super open to collaborate. So I think that's cool that you included that.
Yeah, once you find out you're from the Midwest, I'm like, that's legit.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. And I will see everybody next week.
Thanks, Chloe.